I wanted to ask you, how do you define your personal brand and what problem does it solve exactly?
Yep. So the problem that it solves is dependency. Um, and the way we do that is with financial sovereignty. The way that I define it really is very simple. It's change your mindset from consumer to investor and change your life. Give yourself the freedom and the choices to do what you want to do on your own terms, whether that be fighting for your patients, continue in medicine, or going to put your feet in the sand. To be quite honest, the system wants it that way, right? They
Yeah.
want to have you under their thumb and to be sort of the yes man. And if you are able to build this wealth and make money while you sleep, invest with your dollars, vote with your dollars, all these sorts of things, when something like that happens, you're no longer hindered by this. I have to do this because. Um,
Yeah.
at this point, you don't have to do anything except for what you feel is right in your heart and soul. And that is to me, a liberating feeling. It's this weight sort of lifted off my shoulders. And, I've seen it happen to others as well. It's this sense of, it's a cliche, but it really is a sense of freedom um, to be out from under that burden.
Yeah. People
Think,
sometimes are complain about the system, but actually the problem is they're not having the right vision to see how they can go past the system. The system almost, if you wait for the system to change, it will almost never change. And
yeah,
if it doesn't change, so it's not, so I can see another angle like that where people just have to envision their next move. And
yeah,
yeah, go
absolutely.
ahead.
I think
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is that it's not the system's fault, right? It's your fault.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's your fault that you're dependent on the system and you are
Yes.
allowing that to happen, just like doctors are allowing these insurance companies and administration to run it the way they see fit. And
Yeah.
until we stand up and say no, this is not right, then it's going to
Yeah.
continue to happen. Absolutely.
Welcome to my show.
Thank
From
you.
saving lives to changing lives. Ryan, a surgeon, an entrepreneur, a pilot, and a real estate investor. Wait until you hear from Ryan. Ryan, before we start, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us who you are?
Yeah, so I'm Ryan, Ryan Smolarz. I live down in the Virgin Islands, St. Thomas. Basically, my story starts when I was a child. Really, the only thing I ever thought about being was a doctor. My dad was a doctor, an orthopedic surgeon. Um, Followed him around my entire childhood when he was out of training. And I really didn't ever know anything different. Back in 2017, we my wife and I decided to try to start a family, and that was really scary for me. And one day I sort of realized that, I didn't know anything about finance. I'd never had an accounting class. Really, I just felt like that part of my life was just up in the air. And so,
Mhm.
if I ever needed any money, I would just call my wife and say, "Hey, do we have any fun tickets?" And that to me was what money was. If we have extra, we can do fun things, and if we didn't, we didn't. And so now this whole other level of starting a family, it was kind of building up in my mind. And one day I was exercising with my friends and surfing. I looked over and I said, "You know what? I think I'm going to go to business school." Because at the time that was the only way I knew to figure all this out. And so a couple months later, they thought I was crazy. And, you're a doctor, you're a surgeon. Why would you do that? Doctors don't understand Wall Street, all the stereotypical things. And a couple months later, I was in business school and really felt just out of place. I, walked in, I was like, man, did I make the right decision? I didn't understand it. And on the third day, sort of this light bulb went off in my head. And I was looking at the professor, and I realized something very important. From that moment on, it changed my life. I realized that I was a consumer and always had been. And
Mm.
all the commercials in the entire world were pointed at me because my headspace was filled with, watches and what kind of car I was driving and, all the
Yeah.
material things in life. And I, I, it just made me uncomfortable, right? I knew that I always had this itch that I was trying to scratch. Um, and that moment gave me a whole lot of clarity, which was my headspace needs to be filled with things that an investor would think and not a consumer.
Mm.
And so I went through business school with this mindset, and all the things that I saw in life wasn't like, oh man, that's cool. I want to, one day aspire to get one of those. To how did that company do that, and what was behind it? What are they going to do in the future? How are they building incredible things for the world and changing the lives of their clients or their people who are buying their product? And
Mm.
really, that's when my entrepreneurship and really leadership, for that matter, and investing really sort of took hold in me. And ever since, I really have embraced it and have really had a mindset shift from there on out. When I was coming out of business school, I knew that I wanted to use that knowledge and this whole new mindset and something different. And I didn't at the time want to exit medicine, but I wanted to build and build and build while I was still treating patients and operating and all those sorts of things. And so I remember it very clearly. It was drive to the airport. I have offices on two different islands, and the first podcast came up. It had to be serendipitous because the first podcast was talking about how our lives are really complicated,
Mm.
and you can tell how complicated your life is by the amount of keys you have. And so I looked on the passenger seat and it was filled with keys. I couldn't see the seat. It was just like, like you see in the movies with the
Yeah.
janitorial keys. And that was my life, right? I had thousands of keys. And so I knew my life was super complicated. And then the next podcast that came on, I just happened to change it over. It was a guy talking about self-storage and talking about commercial real estate and all the advantages that industry had.
Mm-hmm.
And so he what he said was, look, commercial real estate and residential real estate, it's super complicated. It's a full contact sport. Like you have to have a team and all of these things. But if you had to pick something that's the least complicated out of all of them, it's self-storage. It's basically a concrete slab with a metal box, and people put their pink flamingos in there, right? All their trinkets and stuff that they don't have room for at their home. They don't want to get rid of grandma's prized possessions and some of those sorts of things. And he said, really, we're not in the storage business. We're in the death, destruction, and economic disaster business, where when people need to downsize or they have a transition in their life, they need us to help keep their things safe while they do that transition.
Mm-hmm.
It made a whole bunch of sense to me. And so, like anything else, when I want to do something, I go find the best people in the world to teach me, and ended up in a mastermind, and actually have had ties with them ever since. And we started building and building, building, and buying self-storage facilities. I was working with several different firms, and then we decided to go out on our own and start our own firm. And with that and that mindset shift, I
Mm-hmm.
said, you know what? This is way too powerful to keep it to myself. We could probably go to institutional money and, we have the skill sets and the now we have, the basically the knowledge and all the things to do this without that. But I
Yeah.
am super, motivated to bang that drum and let people know, especially doctors and physicians, that there is a different way. And you can understand the lingo of Wall Street. I mean, you went into the anatomy lab and you figured out all the nerves and veins and arteries in anatomy class, right?
Mhm.
You have the wherewithal to do it and the perseverance for that matter. It's not easy to, go through 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, and how many ever years of residency. So you have, the 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 resources to be able to do this. And so ever since we've been building, 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 starting podcasts, spreading the word. And, today I'm sitting here with you. And
Yeah,
so we're excited about that to be able to talk to your audience about this. And it's not only for doctors, this mindset shift can happen for anyone.
yeah.
Um, I think it's easier for professionals and experts in something, usually the 9 to 5, who haven't had that clicking moment.
Hmm.
Um, and so, hopefully if me sitting here with you on a Saturday changes one person's life to say, hey,
Yeah.
you know what? I want to see what this is about. I want to
Mhm.
see if there is really this better way that Ryan's talking about. And so,
Yeah.
well worth the time and effort. And thank you very much for allowing me to be here.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ryan, for that intro. It's such a trans. I think you've gone through a transformation from when you're young to people telling you what to do, what to do, what to do, and then you realize most of the time people are telling you what to do. You're going to do your own thing. And when you started taking your own decision, taking intentional control of your life, you started noticing things, the bunch of keys. Even people could hear you coming when you're holding that many keys.
Yeah, there's no
So
there's no sneaking up on anybody, that's for sure.
yeah. And so I like how you kept observing and from listening to podcasts and the next podcast and how your mind changed about it's like employees, if they're hired by somebody, they think like employees. But the moment they start thinking like they own the company, the moment they think like they are part of the investors, then they are going to start giving so much value to that company. And that
Absolutely.
company and that company will notice that. So that mindset shift from individual contributor type to ownership type, where you're taking control and doing the right thing always, mostly for you and also to benefit other people. So I like that. And that's why I mentioned in the beginning, from saving lives to changing lives. And I think that's a great message for your for your
Yeah.
podcast next time, from changing lives to changing lives. And the changing lives part, I mean about how your own life changed, how when you started into the storage business and then you saw that this thing is so big that you don't want to keep it to yourself. You want to impact other medical professions, other doctors. So I think that's very important when we realize that the problem we solve is not only for us, but also for other people in our sphere of influence. I know you talked about this mindset shift when you look at your professor and then a light bulb clicked. Like the class that you almost did not take because people were thinking that you're crazy to move from medical to business. And then by just being in the class, it's not about the class, but by being present in that class, a mind switched. And other doctors might not see it this way. Other doctors will stay there forever. Other professions will stay there. So, at what moment in your career did you realize that doctors were too dependent on a system?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting question. It gives me shivers to think about. And so very passionate about this one. I don't know of any doctor, physician, really medical professional for that matter, who's not been sort of in a situation in their career where they had to make a choice, right? Um, whether it be for some sort of financial situation where they don't think that they're getting paid what they're worth, or making a
Hmm.
decision for a patient, needing to advocate for them, whether, it be for an insurance company not paying for something that the patient needs, or, the hospital administration having a different opinion. Um, and so I think that happened early in life for me, um, or early in my career, I'll put it that way, because I've always had a problem with authority, if we're being honest,
Hmm.
and never really backed down from, standing up for what I believed in. And I realized very early, especially as a resident, not, making pennies for what we were doing, but we were in return, we were getting a good education. But I was dependent on the system, and that's probably where I figured out that having having them have leverage over you changes the way you advocate, right? So if I'm dependent on them to give me my certificate at the end and to train me to do the things that I need to do on my own, then I have to concede to really what they believe, right? If they believe that this is right for the patient, then I don't really have a choice. When I got out into doing it on my own, realizing that there's so many varied opinions, moral compasses, and where we want to take what we believe in and what guides us through life is very different, even for people who are, doctors. Like everybody wants to do the right thing for the patient, but what is right can differ from organization to person to, all these different things. And I believe, and as I go through this journey, firmly believe that if you are still dependent on the system, i.e., you have to have the check to put the food on the table for the kids, or your wife, whoever you're responsible for, you have to make the mortgage, you have to, lots of bills, that your advocacy is hindered by the way that on that dependence. And to be quite honest, the system wants it that way, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah,
want to have you under their thumb and to be sort of the yes man. And if you are able to build this wealth and make money while you sleep, invest with your dollars, vote with your dollars, all these sorts of things, when something like that happens, you're no longer hindered by this. I have to do this because. Um,
yeah,
at this point, you don't have to do anything except for what you feel is right in your heart and soul. And that is to me, a liberating feeling.
hmm,
It's this weight sort of lifted off my shoulders. And, I've seen it happen to others as well. It's this sense of, it's a cliche, but it really is a sense of freedom, um, to be out from under that burden.
yeah. I think it's so true, and I think I have a statement that maybe might conflict with the system aspect, but actually they complement each other. It's about people sometimes are complain about the system, but actually the the problem is they're not having the right vision to see how they can go past the system. The system almost, if you wait for the system to change, it will almost never change. And
Yeah.
if it doesn't change, so it's not, so I can see another angle like that where people just have to envision their next move. And
Yeah,
yeah, go
absolutely.
ahead.
I think
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is that it's not the system's fault, right? It's your fault.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's your fault that you're dependent on the system and you are
Yes.
allowing that to happen, just like doctors are allowing these insurance companies and administration to run it the way they see fit. And
Yeah.
until we stand up and say no, this is not right, then it's going to
Yeah.
continue to happen. Absolutely.
So I have a question here that it's a good segue to just from what you just said, but it's also lined up very well with my next one. So I'll just say it now, but I can ask it later.
Okay.
What will you change to ensure doctors are better equipped for financial and professional freedom? So that's the question. But before we get to that question, I know this next question will maybe try to answer this question in a different way. I wanted to ask you, how do you define your personal brand and what problem does it solve exactly?
Yep. So the problem that it solves is dependency. Um, and the way we do that is with financial sovereignty. The way that I define it really is very simple. It's change your mindset from consumer to investor and change your life.
Mhm.
Give yourself the freedom and the choices to do what you want to do on your own terms, whether that be fighting for your patients, continue in medicine, or going to put your feet in the sand. This is all about choice.
Yeah, I agree. It's about thinking and not just thinking and thinking forever, but taking action.
Absolutely.
And and so to this question, I know you have a framework that you can walk people through to kind of break free, to basically break free from the system and being dependent on the system. So can you walk us through maybe a few of your frameworks or systems where doctors or professionals could benefit from to see a real life example?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way we sort of went through this is thinking about it from two different perspectives, and it's really how you need to change yourself and how the thinking process needs to change first before you can do anything, and then the sort of pendulum swings to where you can actually implement these things. And so, really, the whole basis is framework piece number one, which is belief. You have to believe that you can do this, number one, and you can believe whatever it is you want to believe. And the way you do that is by conscious choice. You say, everybody's telling you, you can't fly airplanes, right? You can't do business. You can't understand Wall Street, right? People, these stereotypes, I don't know if you've ever had that happen to you, but people put you in a bucket and they say, this is you. You've always been this way and you can't change. A
Yeah,
conscious decision to change. Um, and then, your thoughts are, it's basically a repetitive thing in your mind that you're training your brain to say, I am this. I don't want to
yeah,
be this. I am this investor. I am this person who can underwrite deals. I am this person who can stand up for my patients and do what I feel is best. And the second part of that is to get around the people who believe the same thing. It's the exact same thing as social media, right? If you put in some ultra right wing or ultra left wing into social media, you're going to be starting to get fed all of the newsreels from that particular political stance. And eventually, if you keep seeing it over and over, that social media is going to change you into who you are. Um, my position is don't let that happen. Make a conscious decision for yourself to believe and make yourself into who you are. Nobody else should be able to do that, right? We have mentors and teachers and parents and all these sorts of things who are guiding us in this direction, but in the end, it should be your choice. Who you are, your moral compass, where you're trying to go. That's solely on you, right? Anything that happens to you, you're you are in control. You have to take responsibility for those things because even if the world is after you, right? Even if everybody is against you,
yeah,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't serve you to believe that, right?
yeah,
None of those things make any difference. You have to do it for yourself. So that's step one. Step two is broaden your thinking. And so when we're thinking about deals, when we're thinking about the stock market or equities or whatever it is that we're evaluating, um, I believe that you have to take this 30,000-foot view of the situation. So there's three levels to this. The 30,000-foot view, what is the investment? What are we trying to accomplish and why do we want to be here? Like, why do we believe in it, right? Um, and then the second level is when I'm making a decision, I want to be like the general on the hill that's overlooking the troops. I want to be close enough where I can see everything that's going on.
yeah,
And that's where the decision making is done. And then the ground level is the people who are actually in the business. So the head down into the business. What's going on? Why are these people doing the things that they're doing? Why did my package not get to where it was supposed to be? All these logistical issues are a ground level sort of scenario. So as you go up in the ranks, as you go up from the person who's the employee to the person who's making the decisions to the investor, your head is down and in,
Mm-hmm.
straight out, and then up and out, where the investors and the sort of the leadership CEO type roles are trying to see the problems coming to the company and stopping them before they happen.
Yeah.
Um, I have a big story to go along with that, but follow me on social media, that'll come out. But it's really sort of the way to see it, see the investment, see the opportunity, if it is an opportunity at all, a way to look at it and get a broad sense of what's going on. When you are um, negotiating in a business, right? Every interaction that you have with people is a negotiation. It was a negotiation. You offered me a time to come on and to your podcast, and I said yes. I mean, then in its core, that's a negotiation. So all these interactions are in
Mm-hmm.
life are a negotiation. And when you are looking at an investment, it is
Mm-hmm.
a negotiation, but here's the trick. It's a negotiation with yourself, right? You are
Mm-hmm.
trying to decide, are these the right opportunities for me? And then you have the negotiation with the company on when do you put the money in, when it comes out, and all these sorts of things. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to, in your mind, really understand human emotion and psychology of that negotiating sort of way humans do things. And so it's it's a direct transference from the medical field, and doctors are especially in the right place to be able to hit this one on the head, because they're negotiating with patients every day. I want you
Yeah.
to take medicine. Well, why? Well, you got to lose weight. Well, why? And there's these constant sort of interactions with people.
Mm-hmm.
But until you are able to understand that and understand that you're never going to get what you want unless you understand human psychology, and especially yourself's psychology,
Mm-hmm.
you're never going to get to where you're going to be. And so all of these things that we talk about on the first end is the internal types of mindset shift. And then we start saying, okay, we have the right sort of way to look at this. Now we're going to flip the pendulum, and we're going to tilt the seesaw over to the other side, to the implementation. And this is where the consumer now becomes the investor, right? And
Yeah.
now we're ready to hit the ground running and go through the implementation stage. And there's five more B's that go
Yeah.
along with that.
Did you say earlier that there was one time when you looked at your professor in the business school and you thought that you were always a consumer?
Oh yeah.
And then that's when you wanted to switch from being a consumer to an investor. I think that's what you're meaning by that, or
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, so I think that's a very great mindset. Actually, one of my questions was, what are the different mindset shifts should doctors or medical professions or any profession know about before they can take this leap into this side business that can become something of their full-time profession and financial independence. But I think you answered it, and you covered three. I just want people to know what you just covered. I think the first one you mentioned was belief. What
Belief.
was the
Yep.
one word for the second part that you mentioned?
Broaden. So the
Broaden.
30,000-foot view.
So believe, or believe, and
Broaden. Yep.
broaden,
Broaden. Number two, we actually skipped number three and went to barter, which is negotiation.
negotiation. Okay. So yeah, I think those are all that answers the question, I think, for the mindset shift. Sometimes when I'm driving on the highway and we see buildings, high-rise buildings, we see from different real estate apartments, big houses, and then all of a sudden I see this open space with low roof building, and it's storage. And I always tell my wife, I think we should buy land and maybe do something like that one day. But
Yeah.
she doesn't understand why people need the self-storage. So there's people that don't understand why people need the self-storage. So you might come, some doctors or some professionals might think the same way, and they might not be able to even invest in this idea that you have about self-storage. So what can you say to convince them? And why do you keep going through the acquisition process to keep buying more self-storage? Tell me.
Yeah, so first off, I don't want to you know, make people do anything. You either like it sort of or you don't. And after hearing the sort of spill on it, but I think that from a need perspective, it really is, especially in downturns in the market, which we've seen over the last couple of years. The macro environment, there's headwinds, businesses are going under. That puts a lot of stress on people, and it makes their health worse, and all these sorts of things. And to add to it, if you do have a gigantic transition in your life, let's say you have to move pretty urgently, or grandma gets sick and has to go to some sort of 24-hour care, or a million other different scenarios, and you have to sell the house to be able to pay for the care that she needs. The stuff has got to go somewhere, right? You can either liquidate it for pennies on the dollar, or you can put it in a self-storage facility and be able to sort it out later. And so, in my mind, the service that we provide is invaluable in situations like that. And during times where businesses are, downgrading and people are losing their jobs, and we saw it during COVID. We saw it during different times, very recently, where the world's kind of turned upside down. There's these
Mm-hmm.
gigantic migrations in the population, right? There, people are moving out to, the country, or they're moving back to the city, or whatever the case may be. All these transitional periods, the stuff's got to go somewhere. And for a lot of people, those things are, give them comfort, give them happiness, give them, sort of joy to know that grandma's stuff's in a safe place and it's being taken care of, and we can get to it when we need to.
Yeah.
So it's not without its benefits to society. Actually, during COVID, storage was a necessary business to be operational.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were able to keep everything open, right? So people could
Mhm.
get to their stuff. Um, and so, it's a lot of it's generational. Sort of the millennials have a different, sort of mindset than Gen X, and theirs is mostly like kayaks and life, adventure stuff. They don't really like material things as much,
Yeah.
but they don't like big homes and gigantic, housing. So they got to put their stuff somewhere. And, they're on their way out of town
Yeah.
going to the river, and they need to pick up their kayak.
Yeah.
So, college town, you go to the nearest self-storage place, it looks like an REI, right? Like there's life jackets and bikes and,
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of stuff. So, it has its value in
Yeah.
society. I'm convinced of it.
Do you also have people storing boats?
Oh yeah, so we have boat and RV
Okay.
storage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just storage, right? It's just a different
Yeah.
aspect of it, and some
That's
different things.
that's good to know because yeah, my in-laws have a boat, they have a cabin, and every winter, every summer they have to store it. Like in the summer they bring it out, in the winter they have to store it. So I can see it's not about people storing clutter or something excess things, but it's also part of people's lives. Those people who are living comfortable and they want to store it close to their cabin instead of bringing it all the way home. So I can see how that comes into play.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What's the biggest misconception doctors have about investing and building uh, passive income? I know some people don't like the word passive income, but what is the biggest misconception? Why will a doctor not want to do the things
Yeah.
that you're advising them? Yeah.
Most of us are taught that we don't have the capability to do it or the educational background, and that you have to have a financial advisor to do that.
Yeah.
Um, it's really just wrong in my mind. You have to, make it a priority in your life, and it's going to take time and effort to learn some of these things. But if you take a financial advisor taking 2 or 3%, the average market return 7, 8%, and an index fund, you
Mm-hmm.
take that 2 or 3% that you would be making from the 8% you compound that over time. I mean, we're talking about decades of more work that you're going to have to do, right? To meet
Yeah.
your number that's going to satisfy you for your retirement just off the top.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that complicated to learn and understand, right? It's just another language. It's just like medicine. If I were to talk to you about some sort of ear problem, right? I would
Yeah.
talk to you like a patient, not a doctor, right? Because it's just the way we communicate. And that's the way you have to think about Wall Street, is it's just a way they communicate, really, so that, people will think they have a ton of value, which some of them do. I'm not saying that they don't, but if you choose to do it, then
Mm-hmm.
you can do it, right? Like it's not a question of can you, it's will
Yeah.
you if you want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I noticed, and this just came up from a recent conversation with a friend. It's for people in the medical field when they're hanging out with people in business or like entrepreneurship. These guys are talking about how they are buying the next thing or how they are closing the business. And for this other person is thinking about his experience with the patient and medical. So they already feel outside,
Yeah,
not really welcome. So I can see how there can be hesitation.
absolutely. I mean, you
Yeah,
come out of training for years and years, and you're really talking to doctors and
yeah.
those sorts of people all the time. It is I can tell you from my experience, that was hard. That was coming
To make
I
that
felt like I was
decision.
re-entering the world, right? Like
Yeah.
after training, seriously. And it was a weird thing.
That's why you are the right messenger for that. And your framework, I know you have a 10 step. You told us three of them, and maybe we might hear more later on that. I want to ask you this next question about entrepreneurship and leadership. How do you balance being a medical expert, investor, an entrepreneur, a pilot, and also I think you have, maybe I can ask you that also. You also have a certification in blockchain technology and also in as a pilot. How do you balance all those and why are those so important?
Yeah, so well, first off, I don't think there's ever balance in life. I think that
Yeah.
I look at it like the Globetrotters, where you have 25 basketballs that are bouncing around you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the name of the game is to keep all of them bouncing. You
Mm-hmm.
see one that gets a little bit lower on the bouncing level, and you got to go over and you got to get it
Keep
back
bouncing
up.
them. Yeah.
Balance, yeah, you got to get it back up to bouncing. And so, are we in the red? Are we in the black on all these different aspects of our life, our fitness, our fun, our family? Are we spending time with our wives and kids? And um, you know, we're not ever going to have them all bouncing at the same level at the same time. That's number one. Number two, the reason why I've entered into multiple asset classes is because within one different, so diversity, to me, or diversification is very important. But when I go into an asset class, I don't do what the normal investor would do. I don't have 1% of my allocated income into 50 different stocks, or you know whatever, I don't play the market. So the way that I've learned to invest is, let's say, in the medical field, outside of my practice, we build assisted living homes. So in medicine, I have one piece of that asset class that I focus on. And so in the medical field outside of my practice, it's assisted living. And so in equities, we research a whole bunch of companies, but a big portion of capital for that particular allocation is put into 2 or 3 companies, and so we can follow them. We know who the CEO is. We know who, the CFO is, and how they do the accounting, and when they take their vacations, and when they do all these sorts of things. So when the stock price drops, we can say, well, Joe went on vacation and he screwed up this, filing or whatever it was. So we know like what's going on um, in the different companies as best we can. Obviously, behind the curtain, there's a lot of things we can't figure out, but lots of research within these different companies to really sort of understand them. And when the market drops, and it drops 20, 30, 40, 50%, you mentioned crypto, 80%, right? When we understand the asset on the fundamental level at its core, then me and the people who I trade with, we're laughing, right? We're like, this is awesome. We get to buy it cheaper, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there is comfort in that. And so really, if you take these business aspects and principles and even the 10 Bs, it's really, in my mind, about putting in the work, understanding the asset, and they are transferable to all of these different aspects of investing. It's really all the same thing, right? It's about systems, processes, doing the right thing, having a good moral compass. And it doesn't matter if you're making diapers, or you're um, taking care of the elderly, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. The principles are the same. And so that's why, in my mind, I can do what I do.
Yeah. I have an opinion why you got a pilot license.
Okay.
I think because of how you have positioned yourself as an investor and not just a consumer, and the way you have diversifying things, this pilot thing, you might end up on your own plane and you have to get there quickly. Quickly. So I'm thinking maybe that's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the hurricanes, probably the one time I needed the pilot's license the most was September 7th, 2017. We had 2 Category 5 catastrophic hurricanes coming.
Yeah.
And week before, we sold the airplane.
You sold
So,
it.
yeah. So the one time I needed it,
Yeah.
very much, we didn't have it. But yes, really all of these different things, um, you know, in life is really about, being able to do the things that you want to do, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
getting my pilot's license, yeah, it represents freedom to me, right? It represents I can get to where I need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so does investing. It's the same thing. I can I can get where I need to be with using money as a tool.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm sure people are watching this, or even medical professions, and they're wondering, so how do I get into what Ryan is talking about? How do
Yeah,
you answer them?
yeah, we're building a community, and we want like-minded people to be around us. I mean, we're learning too, right? I mean, we're experts in investing and have walked the walk, but we're continuing to learn every day. I'm taking courses and doing, building a personal brand and trying to get the message out there and all these sorts of things. And I want to build a team. I want people to come join us. I want people to, learn the things that have helped me so tremendously. And so we are building um, a team, a community of these like-minded people. And really, it starts with a call at storepartners.com, where you can click the link, have a conversation with me and my team. We're building out a community where you can come and join and talk and learn, and present your deals, and have somebody looking over your shoulder, and um, figuring out how
Mm-hmm.
to sponsors and look at the business and underwrite it, all these sorts of things. It's it's an absolutely incredible thing, I believe, that we are putting together here. I think it will
Mm-hmm.
transform many, many lives.
Yeah, and I remember what you sent me in an email. This thing changed my life. That's your exact quote. And and because it changed your life, you want to share it with people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have to say, yeah, you have something to say about that?
I mean, I think that, it takes the right person, because it's going to take time away in the beginning to build out your investing career. Um, but if I'll put it this way, if you have this itch that you can't figure out what it is, and it's like in a spot where you can't reach it, and it's
Yeah,
always bugged you, right?
yeah,
I can't be the only one out there that had that happen to, right?
yeah,
It just doesn't seem possible. So if
yeah,
that's you and you want to find a team of like-minded individuals to basically to help you believe what you want to believe, then come
yeah.
join.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think maybe one thing you mentioned about people would rather go to a medical profession or a surgeon that uh, is investing in something.
Yeah. So that's the advocacy piece. So
Yeah.
yeah, we talk a lot about that, where in my mind, the questions shouldn't be centered around for your physician, whether they went to Harvard or one of the Ivy League schools to get their training. The state schools have very good training for most of the things in medicine.
Mm-hmm.
In my belief, what you should be asking is, are they financially secure? And if there is a problem, are you going to not be reliant on the system and stand up and fight for me?
Yeah. And I'm sure anybody watching wants to know, is there any success story that you can share where somebody went through similar process as you and you can tell that their life have changed?
Oh, absolutely. So back in 2016, 17, when I was making the transition, one of my partners now actually in the assisted living homes was going
Mm-hmm.
to the same type of thing. And, I called him up and said, hey, you want to put this group together? Because I think that, our capital together is going to help us push this thing faster. And he said, yeah. And so over the course of the time, we've made, every mistake in the book. We've figured out how to put the teams together, how to put the processes together. And it came to be probably, I guess it was a couple of years ago, where he called me up and said, hey, look, I'm at this hospital. I'm supposed to be medical director. And, that was kind of my trajectory in life, is just to stay in this one institution. They are selling the emergency room piece to another company, and I just don't feel like I'm being treated like I want to be treated. And I said, well, Jason, you've got all these other things. You have the wherewithal now to be a business person and start up your own thing. I said,
Mm-hmm.
just do whatever it is you want to do. And the banter kept going back and forth. I don't think that it was me who, made that decision for him. I think he made it on his own. It's like, okay, well, that's what we're going to do. And so now he's got his, two other businesses. We do the assisted living, and, he works for ERs on the side, and he's really put this entrepreneurship and, you know, uh, sort of investing at the forefront. And now
Mm-hmm.
he's super happy running his own businesses, doing well for himself and his family. And he's able to, help a lot of people at the same time. So the transition in my mind was mutual. It wasn't me teaching him or him teaching me. We just
Mm-hmm.
figured it out together, right?
Yeah.
And so for us to be able to pass that knowledge down to other folks and not make just the gigantic amounts of mistakes along the way, you could
Mm-hmm.
literally take, you could half the time, it could be, a 3x difference in the amount of time it takes you get from point A to B. And
Mm-hmm.
that to me is just super powerful.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're saying people would rather go to a doctor who has an investment understanding versus one who doesn't. I know Brand Builders Group did a 1 year study and where they asked people, I think I'm going to paraphrase, but not exactly, but they asked people which type of doctor will they choose, one with a personal brand or one without. And a higher percentage chose a doctor that has a personal brand.
Yeah.
Something about whatever they're solving in their own unique way. So they feel more connected and related to that kind of experience with a doctor. So it's
Yeah,
same
it's building
thing.
trust,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So what lessons from medicine have helped you build strong teams in real estate and business?
Oh, I think it's instrumental. And that's part of why we're beating the drum so loudly is, in residency, we where I trained was the busiest trauma hospital in the world. And so
Hmm.
we were having just catastrophic event after catastrophic event
Hmm.
come in. And it's really, in my mind, trial by fire in leadership, right? If you can't lead these teams and these people, the ones that, you've done more training, but you're still not have the full amount of training before you come out, you're, chief resident or junior resident, you have to lead. There is no other option but to get to the people that are below you to do what they need to do to have, the people not die.
Yeah,
You really, that's
that's
what,
why I say that you save lives.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so to go through something like that and have the opportunity to learn leadership when you don't even know that you're learning leadership is incredible to me. And then you come
Hmm.
out and you put some basis and fundamentals of business along with that. You have the opportunity to be an incredible person who, builds businesses that changes the world.
Yeah, I agree. What's one unconventional piece of advice would you give to a young doctor just starting their career?
Yeah. So I don't know if it's so off from what other people would say, but I would say when you're first coming out of
Hmm.
training, get your boards done, get all the things done that to be a successful medical doctor or surgeon. And then after the few years of being able to really hone in your skills there, you're going to know when that transition period is. You're going to feel it, or at least I did. That question of what's next keeps popping up in your head, right?
Hmm.
Um, and from there, don't sit on it. If it is investing, that's what's burning a hole in your chest and into your heart and soul. That's what's missing. Then start. Don't sit on it. Get educated. Join us. Find another group. Find a team who you resonate with, and put small amounts of capital up in an investment and watch it, learn from it, grow, do the underwriting, do all the things that you have to do and learn. Um,
Yeah,
People sit on the sidelines for way too long.
yeah, I agree. So I think that's a great advice for somebody just starting. But even before they start, I want to ask you, before you started, if you could go back and give your younger self one financial lesson, what will that be?
It would be think like an investor. Um,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
knew you're going to say that. Yeah.
it's really what
Don't
to
don't
me.
think don't think like a consumer.
Yeah, I don't think like a consumer, think like an investor and try your best in your head to solve the world's problems, figure out one that you are most passionate about and solve it. It's very simple.
Yeah. So do you have a personal brand symbol and how do you use it every day in your life?
Yeah, so the symbol is a shield
A
and
shield.
a
Yeah.
shield. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe that's what this is. You're building this cocoon around you and your family and the people who you love, and
Yeah.
you are able to bounce off the arrows that are coming at you, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
to me, that's really what it is.
Shielding yourself. I think it's a very good analogy. I know when we talked, you are brainstorming on that, and I can see how it connects to you talk about people not just aligning with the system or the system is holding people back, and you are helping them build this financial shield around themselves. I
Yeah.
can I can see how it connects. Yeah.
The financial stability is your shield.
Yeah.
I think there was a quote that came out on social media. Money doesn't buy happiness, but it sure does make a lot of problems go away, right? Like Um,
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
what it is.
So, Ryan, how does a typical doctor feel every day?
Um,
Do they feel shielded, protected, or do you think they're treating people, but they're worrying about something else? What do you
oh,
think?
absolutely. I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, you feel exposed, right? Like
Yeah.
that we live in a litigious society. There are, not so great people out there who you're going to come into contact with. I feel like there's no shield. And you feel like, you're exposed to all these different things in the world, and you're trying your best. As you took an oath to basically do no harm, and there's nobody there to to protect you from all these world issues that are coming at you
Yeah.
day to day.
Yeah. Did you have to work during COVID
Oh
when it
yeah.
was just starting?
Oh, when it was just starting, we closed down the office. I think it was for about a month, and we got all the necessary protection equipment. But where I was operating, where I was, working, was in the back of the nose. That's where the virus
You
grows.
you were in the lion's cave or den.
Yeah, I was in the lion's den, and it was
Yeah.
scary. And it was there were definitely some irrational decisions made by the world in general. I definitely
Hmm.
think that, but there were reasons to be scared. There were reasons to take
Hmm.
precautions, and there were reasons that some of those things happened. And unless you were on the front lines and having to be exposed, it's really easy for people to, throw shade on people who when they don't have the same repercussions from what happens, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, it was scary.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to be asking you at some point here about some rapid fire questions.
Mhm.
Those are going to be coming, and I wanted to ask, maybe I can do the rapid fire questions. Maybe before that, I don't want people to go without knowing this. So you told us about the inner game, believe, broaden, and then negotiation. And then there's a second phase where you take people through implementation and then action. Can you briefly tell us? So, because I want them to see how they can walk through a step-by-step process
Yeah.
to feel
So,
confident and take action. Yeah.
so after we do the pivot from the implement or the skill building to the implementation, the first one is basically to build your base, which is finding which investments motivate you, right? I talk about pink flamingos all day long when I'm not talking about operating on boogers. So,
Hmm.
that might not motivate you. You might not feel passionate about holding on to people's stuff. You may want to do, poverty housing, or, bring water to the, places that don't have clean water. But I would encourage people in this basis of our investing to figure out what it is that, because, when you have a full day of work and you come home at 8, 9 o'clock, put the kids to bed, now it's 11, 12, you start working on this stuff at 1 o'clock in the morning. If you hate it, like if you hate pink flamingos, you're not going to do it, right? So
Hmm.
figure out the things that you want to invest in, and
Hmm.
make sure that it it makes you it makes you want to learn more, right? It makes
Hmm.
you helps you push yourself. And then once you have those different asset classes, you really want to break them up in a very strategic way, in a very conscious way of saying, okay, I have this much capital to invest, right? And I have these different asset classes that I'm interested in. How much percentage of these different buckets do I want to put my capital in? Do I want it 30% to be in commercial real estate, 5% to be in crypto, 20% to be in equities? And then break that down, and then compare your buckets to what you're trying to accomplish, right? So if you are wealth building, then your risk profile is going to have to be higher than someone who's just protecting capital and trying to increase their amount of capital that they have to inflation, right? So you have to understand your goals about where you're trying to go. Also, as a doctor and a physician, usually we have high W-2 income, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where taxes are a bear and they're taking 40, 50% of the money straight off the paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to devise different ways of lowering that tax burden, which
Mm.
usually entails taking your passive income bucket, especially with commercial real estate, and using depreciation to drive that tax burden down, right?
Yeah.
And to be able to use more of that capital to build your wealth and do all the things to hold on to it longer. And just having those strategies in place will exponentially push you closer and closer to being able to have those choices. And then we go into the bonding where we're saying, okay, are you going to get educated in yourself and do this on your own? Or are you going to join a team of professionals who you trust, who you like, who are doing the assets that drive you, and learn so you can either pay for it, which is what I did, and go to business school, which is a fine way to do it, or you can put your money with a professional team and really ride the coattails of what they do as far as underwriting and picking the asset that you're going to buy or build
Yeah.
or all these sorts of things and learn it that way, where you're actually making money from that investment and not paying money for to get educated.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one is just begin, right? Just start. Small amounts of capital. After finding the people you trust, you have your board of directors, right? That's really a group like us. That's what we're doing for people is we're being their board of directors. We're not saying do this, do that, do that. What we're saying is you tell us what you are doing, and we will give you more unbiased feedback on the things to look out for, right? Did you vet the sponsor? Is it Bernie Madoff that you're investing with, right?
Yeah.
So all these sorts of questions that when you're if especially if you're not seasoned enough to be able to take that 30,000-foot view, you may not see your viewpoint may not be high enough, and it happens to all of us, right? That's not
Mm-hmm.
just non-seasoned, but happens in more in green type of folks who are just getting in. But we all have blind spots, all of
Yeah.
us. So those those board of directors are invaluable. If you had a board of directors and you paid them a ton of money, if they ever just saved you from one bad deal, whatever you paid them is worth it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because they're taking the risk away from your plate.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the last one is just being able to do this over and over and over and over again. So once you get the efficiencies, just like in any business, you get the systems, the processes, all these things in place, you do it over and over and over. And one day you wake up and you're like, I can do whatever I want to do.
Yeah. So I know you said something very important, and I think people are going to rewind at that point. Before I ask you that question, can you just list out then from like believe, just the one word for each up to 10?
Yeah.
Just spell them out. Yeah.
Sure, it's believe or belief, broaden, build, barter, become, which is where the seesaw flips, and you go to the other side. Base, buckets, bonding, begin, and bolster. And bolster is the one we just talked about, where you rinse and repeat everything in those different buckets.
Yeah. So do you have a name for this framework? 10 steps?
The 10 Bs, basically, it's it's fixing the mind shift or the mind shift gap for investing.
Yeah.
That's the name of it. Yeah, the mind shift gap. How to fill the mind shift gap.
How to fill the
Mind
mind
shift
shift gap.
gap. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking of
Or
mindset
investor
gap,
gap.
mind shift
Yeah.
gap. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, those are the steps are clear. I know we did not mention them step by step in the beginning, but in your conversation, you were actually following those kind of steps. The part about tax, we are currently in tax season, and I know even if my father-in-law is watching this, he's probably also going to rewind at that location at that
Right.
time. And I think people are going to be interested in that. Can you just emphasize the importance of what you're doing and how people will benefit in terms of tax? Because you said I can see it also sometimes people are putting in a lot of hours, making enough money, and then 50% taxed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, the US and other countries, government-wise, in my opinion, are very poor at a lot of things. But one thing they are very, very good at is rewarding the people who provide jobs, who build businesses, who take risks in these different things. And so if you're willing to put your time and or capital into a project that you are the owner of, we'll call it ownership, then you are giving some benefits that people who are the employees or the workers do not, because it's about risk, right? You're taking on more risk. So if you have, let's call it a commercial real estate property, we'll call it self-storage, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have the opportunity to break all the different um, components of that investment up into different categories called a cost segregation study. And it basically it boils down to anything you can take off the walls, the personal, property and
Yeah.
or land improvements. All of these go into different buckets. And usually if you don't do that, 30 and a half years is the way it's depreciated. So you have to have the investment for many, many years, decades.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can take those pieces of that asset and depreciate it faster, where maybe it's over 5 years or maybe it's over 8 years, depending on what the bucket is. And now your depreciation schedule is accelerated, and you can use that acceleration to drive down your tax bill as an owner of that asset
Mm-hmm.
faster. And so
Yeah.
when you sell the asset, it just basically starts over and it depreciates again.
Yeah.
So there are incentives, and it's very much strategy on when to buy, when to sell, when to depreciate that asset.
Mm-hmm.
It can make a gigantic difference in not what you get back from the investment, but what you don't have to pay to the government for taking on that risk.
Yeah. That's powerful advice coming from a doctor, a surgeon,
Right?
and somebody who has done it.
Yeah.
So my brother keeps bothering me every year about uh, crypto.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Buy crypto, buy crypto. And I ask him, have you bought yours yet? No, but every time he calls me, he talks about crypto.
Yeah.
And I told him, if you're going to talk about crypto, I'm not going to to
Not
pick
gonna
up.
talk to him. Right.
Yeah. So I spent like I just okay, let me try it. I bought like I said, let me spend $1,000 and I'll buy these cryptos. Just let it sit there and
Yep.
see. So tell me, what can you say about investing in crypto? I know you took the blockchain class, so you should have
Yep.
some experience there. What's your take on that? I want you to
Yeah.
convince me, and maybe I'll make my brother happy now.
Yeah. So when you think about crypto or cryptocurrency, really to me, you have to very much define what you are talking about. And you mentioned blockchain. So to me, blockchain and crypto are two totally different things. If you look at the technology for blockchain, which is basically an unhackable Excel file, for lack of a better term, that you can break into pieces and it goes into the, never never land, and you can bring it back and to put the pieces together whenever you need to be able to have an immutable record of really anything. That to me is where the value is in blockchain technology, right? So if you had a home that you were trying to purchase,
Yeah.
and it was on the blockchain with all the records, right? So you went to sell this property, and the buyer says, well, how do I know that the half the house wasn't destroyed by a tree falling down whenever the last storm was? And you can say, because it's on the blockchain, every piece of transaction that's ever been there is on there. You can see it. And yes, there was a problem with the toilet back in 2008 or sink.
Mm-hmm.
This
It's like a Carfax.
like a Carfax, but you can't change it, right? Like it is unchangeable. If you do change it, you can see where it's been changed or manipulated and all these
Yeah.
sorts of. And so now you have a record that is, here it is. This is what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubting that what I'm telling you is true. What have you created there? What you have created is a trustless system, right? I can do business with you. I can do business with anyone in the world, but I don't have to trust you. All I
Yeah.
have to do is trust the system, this sort of platform that has told me that these things are accurate and true. So now we have filled the trust gap of the world, which the internet filled the distance gap, right? When the internet came along, I could do business anywhere in the world. Blockchain is filling the trust gap, which is absolutely incredible. Now, you put cryptocurrency in there that's based on blockchain technology. Really, what you're saying is you're talking about the financial system where blockchain is being introduced, right? And you are
Mm-hmm.
going to have thousands upon hundreds of thousands of projects that are just plain garbage, right? And so, but there are certain projects that are not, that really understand the technology and forwarding the science and being able to, you're able to build a trustless, bankless person, right? The,
Mm-hmm.
the reason why I got into blockchain, interestingly enough, was one project in particular that was doing microloans
Yeah.
in Africa for people who didn't have access to banking. So you could do a trustless system where you loaned different amounts of money, and it was on small transactions. The prototypical sort of scenarios down in Mexico where the kid, the young entrepreneur wanted to get a taco cart, right? And you built the taco part and gave him a little bit of cash flow to be able to buy the taco meat and the tortillas or make the tortillas or whatever it is, and they could incrementally pay you back through a
Yeah.
smart contract, and it automatically happens through the cash flows of the business. So now you have these pieces that are incredible, right? Like you are building a whole new world that is outside the lines of the traditional finance system. So you have now non-fit traditional finance, and you have traditional finance, which are fighting each other.
Mm-hmm.
Really, what you have in cryptocurrency, in my mind, is you have this great, incredible technology of blockchain, and then you just have noise,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's going up, it's going down, it's dropping 80%, it's going up 5x, it's going, it's just
Yeah.
noise,
Yeah.
right? Whatever happens over here, I don't care. What's happening over here is we're building things that are changing the world,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That's what I care about, and that's why I invest in crypto.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Because the entire time you were speaking, I was waiting for this question and then you just answered it. Because I was going to say, so do you invest in blockchain technology or like initiatives or crypto? And investing in crypto is basically you are also investing in blockchain. Is that what you're trying to say also?
Yeah, I pick projects that
Mm-hmm.
are based in science, peer-reviewed studies. Yes, they are cryptocurrencies, but they're building the financial highway system for what I believe is going to be our highway system going forward, especially if you put AI on top of it. And
Okay,
so,
I see.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
represented by a cryptocurrency. Yes,
Yeah.
but the technology is all about blockchain and building that trustless system.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let's move on to rapid fire questions, right? I think it's been a long conversation. So rapid fire question, it's rapid fire, but feel free to take your time. Biggest myth about leadership.
Biggest myth about leadership is that you sit on a pedestal. As a leader, it should be upon you to do the dirty job, show your team that you are in it, right? Like you are not the director, you are a part of the team. And if they feel like you are part of the team, they will, go to the ends of the earth for you. If you sit
Hmm.
up in the top and bark orders and kind of put yourself away from them and say, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Your leadership is going to suffer, and B, people are not going to respect you. And
Hmm.
so
Yeah,
you have to be in it, roll up your shirt sleeves and get after it.
yeah. One book every business leader should read.
10x is easier than 2x. Benjamin Hardy.
Yeah, I've seen that it's easier to make after you make the first 1 million, it's easier to make 10 million versus 1 million.
The
Is that
premise
true?
well, I think that what the statement is true. The book, it says, and the premise is that it's easy to figure out how to double the revenue for your company, right? But
Hmm.
it's there are only going to be two or three things that you focus on that are going to be able to 10x your business.
Yeah,
So a large percentage of your time should be to identify those two or three different things in your business that have the ability to forward you 10x. And if you do that, then really what you're doing is focusing on the things that are going to push you forward and then eliminate all the noise, right? We talked about noise in blockchain and
yeah.
cryptocurrency and to push that
Mhm.
aside. And then once you get to that 10x, you do the whole exercise over again. What are the two or three things? And they may be the same, they may be not. To focus on for the next 10x that is going to drive us to that 10x. So if you're just trying to double your revenue, then you're going to focus on 10, 20 different things that are going to get you there. Really, there are only two or three that are going to multiply it to that extent.
Yeah, great. Um, Morning routine or a night owl?
Both. I work late into the night. In a morning routine when I was really doing it consistently
Hmm.
was basically get up, work out, and have a shake, and that was my morning routine.
Hmm.
I've since gotten away from it, and I have to get back to it.
Hmm. How many hours do you sleep a night?
It varies,
Average. Yeah.
anywhere from 2 to 6, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Lately, it's been a lot less.
Yeah. One thing people always get wrong about you.
I get this a lot, and it's you can't do anything but be a doctor, right? You're a doctor. What
Yeah.
else are you gonna do? And it's
Yeah,
just garbage.
that's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
because even people are going to watch this and they're going to be wondering why is this guy telling me about financials?
Yeah.
But you have the experience there. Okay. If you weren't in this industry, what will you be doing? So this question is usually people have one profession. So I don't know
Right.
how you want to answer this.
Yeah, what would I be doing? And it goes back to the premise. I would be trying to find a question that I can answer that would make the world a better place.
Yeah. This one, I think everybody is waiting to hear this question, and your response will be very important for them. What's one piece of advice for doctors wanting to take control of their financial future?
Just start. Very simple.
Yeah,
Start.
great. Those were our rapid fire questions. And I think I will feel bad if I don't ask you this next question before the podcast, because I don't know when I'll be able to get you again on the podcast. You have a patent, right?
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's up to six
And
of them now.
something you have six, you said?
Yeah.
And yeah, the one I came across was something to do with bone conduction.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that one?
Yeah, so back in the I guess it was 5 years ago or something like that. There was in our industry in ear, nose, and throat, otolaryngology, we have what's called a bone anchored hearing aid, and it really transformed the industry as far as hearing goes. If you have unilateral hearing loss or some other different things, and you what is done is you can put a bolt into the head, a screw, and you
Mm-hmm.
can attach this device, which essentially is capturing the sound on the bad hearing ear and transferring it over to the good hearing ear. So you have sort of bidirectional hearing of, in some ways at that point. So if there's a car coming at you and going to run
Oh,
over, right? You can
sound
hear
wave, yeah.
the car coming. Now you may look over this side first, but you're gonna, the brain accommodates.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did is said, okay, um, if it's being transferred by the bone, there are other places in the body where that can transfer sound by bone. And there was a couple other uh, teams that were trying to figure this out. But what we decided was to make a tooth attachment that goes on the tooth and transfers the sound from the bone the same way up into the ear,
Mm-hmm.
into the apparatus. So now what does that mean? So instead of having the earbud in your ear and being by Bluetooth, now you have it in your mouth. Well, especially for military and people who are on the go a lot, the wind,
Yeah,
the rain, all the stuff,
yeah,
is absolutely no factor, right?
yeah.
And
That's
so
genius. Yeah.
yeah, so now you can hear and talk through this little thing clipped on your tooth,
Mm.
where now yeah, you take that to a college level or some sort of classroom. I mean, the what you can do with that are a lot of nefarious things, right? You can have people like telling you the answers to the test and all sorts of things, and you would never figure it out. But that's not the point of the device. The point of the device is to be able to hear and talk without having any interference with anything else, basically.
Mm. Yeah,
So yeah, it's a fun project. It's a daunting project because just like the iPhone and every other device in the world, you got
yeah.
to where it's smaller and smaller. So it's
Good.
actually
Yeah.
useful.
Because you have to check your eating. Yeah, like you have to understand how food will interfere with it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we usually take it out. I mean, it's a removable device, so you just take it out for when you eat. But
Mhm.
yeah, you have the saliva and all the stuff that you have to deal with. So interesting
Yeah,
project though.
yeah. I think I know you have a lot of stories about ENT, like the ear, nose, and what's the T stand
Throat.
for?
The
Throat.
throat.
And then
Yeah.
also you are also doing neck and head also. So I'm sure you have a lot of those examples from your experience. It would be good to learn about those, to hear your stories in the future about those.
Yeah.
But uh, any, can you tell us how people can find you and connect with you and learn more about you? You have a lot of experience that people might want to follow you.
Yeah, absolutely. So LinkedIn, Joseph Ryan Smolarz, you can find me there. Send me a message. Very easy to do. Or if you want to talk to me and my team, um, Store Partners, STOR partners.com. There's a link there. Click it. We can have a call and, if we can be helpful and point you in the right direction. There's also a phone number where you can actually text with me and my team if you're looking for direction on where to, what book should I read or how do I start this or, any of those sorts of questions that have you stopped in your tracks, um, and we can push you a little bit forward. We're happy to do it.
Yeah, I think people don't want to give their phone numbers away, and you are giving it out. This is the biggest thing I wanted to tell you, and I kept forgetting. With supply chain issues going on and tariffs going on, and the trade was going on, I interviewed Stephanie Forbes last time. The storage industry is going to boom. That's my that's my prediction for the next 6 months or 1 year. You should see, is it called influx? Is that the right word to?
Yeah,
you should see influx of storage. So you are going to be in demand for a good minute. So
Yep.
yeah,
Well, we like that.
yeah, it's been nice talking to you to talk about the problem that you solve, dependence, through your uniqueness. Can you remind us your uniqueness?
Yeah, advocacy.
Advocacy. You are
Yeah.
advocating for other doctors to take control of their life, but I think you have a specific message. What's that one message that you
Think
have
like
for
an
that?
investor.
Can you repeat that one?
Sure.
Th-
Think like an
th-
investor.
Think like an investor. My message for the problem I solve is take intentional control of your life. So I think I can see my mine is all about taking action. I think this podcast conversation, it's going to benefit a lot of professions, not only the medical. My roommate from college is a orthopedic surgeon or doctor. Yeah, like
Surgeon.
one
Yeah.
of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know I'm gonna send him this video and see what he says. But
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, thanks very much for joining the show. Unless you have a last message for the audience.
The last message would be to, figure out if this is what's missing from your life, because it was for me. And it was such a blessing to find it and take a hold of it and try to figure it out. And we're learning every day. And hopefully you'll find a team that you trust and, can grow with it, and just start. Please just start.
Yeah, and after this, I'm going to do some searching about storage and talk to my wife about storage.
There
See
you
what she
go.
will say. Self-storage.
Yep,
Thank you very much, Ryan. I'm sure I'm gonna see you again. It was nice chatting with
absolutely.
you. Yeah,
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
thanks. Yeah.